Hello, everyone. This is Cautious Coffee. I am DeRae Crane here with my co-host, Austin Staton.
And we are drinking coffee. Actually, coffee, because we are recording in the morning. So if you hear us slurping coffee, that's where the origin story for Cautious Coffee happened. And cheers. Get that right up there on the microphone. Get that right up there on the microphone.
What are we talking about today, Austin?
Relationships, marriage. Am I missing anything else?
No, I think that's good. This should be a fun one.
We'll see.
Hopefully everything's been cleared and we can have a candid conversation.
So why did you want to discuss this? Because this was a topic that you wanted to discuss on the podcast.
Quite honestly, I wanted to discuss it because I perceive that we have different views of marriage and relationships simply because you are a happily engaged man in a long-term relationship, and I'm not. So I figured we could have a decent conversation about this.
Buckle up. We have no idea where this is going to go. So, well, maybe DeRae does. I don't know. But
yeah, it was just kind of an idea. I think, I'm curious to know what your experience has been like because we're about the same age, and, yet here you are getting ready to, you put a ring on it. So I'm so fascinated by that whole experience.
Have I told you the story about that?
You may have. I'm not sure. Remind me.
All right. So I think I maybe have told you like the high level story of, where the engagement happened and that end. But when Katie and I first started dating, I don't know how this came up. She's by far like not a materialistic person, but she made a comment saying that if it's not 2 carats or more, there's not a yes. And so I thought it would be funny if I actually bought her 2 carats from like Central Market.
Vegetables.
Yeah, to give as like a gift just to see if she remembered, and she had no clue. So that joke completely failed on my end. But she does not like surprises.
Okay.
Like she wants to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And when I finally, so this happened on her birthday, when I told her, all right, we've got one more surprise for you, she started saying like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, just completely like, I don't like surprises.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I had no idea. Like, I don't know. And so I'm sitting here like freaking out, and I've got one of my friends hidden behind like a car taking photos. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to say no. This is going to end up in the group thread. Like, it's just going to be so bad. Ultimately, she said yes. And so that's where we are. There was a little terrifying moment. It's not as... You see the video, you see the pictures of so many proposals happening. That's not how it necessarily went down for me.
Yeah. Well, congratulations again, man. I'm proud of you. And I want you to know that because I really value and admire marriage, even though, 1/3 to 1/2 of people that get married.
I think it's 50%.
We'll give it a range. 1/3 to 1/2 end up divorced. Yeah, it's life. It's part of life. And speaking of that, I was married once upon a time. I was married to my son's mother.
Someone tied you down, DeRae?
I love my son's mother to this day. We were married. It's been 10 years since we've been divorced. But I knew that, that wasn't the right person for me, and I wasn't the right person for her. But we are awesome friends. We co-parent phenomenally. We have a really awesome relationship, and our son is a little stud.
I think that's really important that you're able to co-parent effectively, because I know a lot of people, we've had family members as well, coworkers that have been in marriages and it hasn't been working. It's toxic, it's unhealthy.
Stayed for the kids.
And they stayed for the kids. And once they do get that divorce or that separation, the happiness levels increase. They can, be their true selves, and they realize, all right, we can still parent separately. So I do find that as an interesting, dynamic. And someone actually told me probably 5-6 years ago. It was someone both that we know. And she said that her and her husband had split up, and she said that one of the only reasons why they got married is because she got pregnant. and they, felt like that was the right thing to do at the time. And the advice that she gave me was, look, just because, somebody gets pregnant doesn't mean you have to, get married. Like, make sure that you actually want to marry that person.
So I'm going to push back on that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it was smart of them to get married. Because
she disagrees.
Yeah, well,
and the divorce lawyers, I guess, disagree.
I think they went into it a bit more blind than they should have, right? They should have understood, hey, we're getting married for, there's an economic incentive here for us to get married because it makes more sense.
Yeah, and I think when you're young, you make that decision.
Yeah.
Like you don't necessarily know where you're going to fit in financially in the world. You don't know what your long-term career stability is going to look like, and so there's a lot more uncertainty. And I think people lock themselves into a marriage because there is that uncertainty, and they think that's going to bring some sort of stability. But the people that I know that have been in similar situations that are older haven't done it.
So this is great. This leads us right to the top 3 reasons I think people should get married.
Are we going to put this up on the board? Are we going to put this up on the screen?
Maybe not. We may disagree. We may disagree here, and I made a mention of it just a second ago. Is that number one for me? It's economic, right? Marriage is an economic institution. Everything around it historically was families merging, 2 people coming together and doing more than what they could have alone, and that's starting a family, paying the bills, creating a house, a culture, all that stuff. Love is like number 3.
In a lot of the world, you're 100% right. Economics comes first. I mean, there's a reason why dowries were such a big deal for families. That's why in a lot of the world there's still arranged marriages. It's to keep up family lineage, heritage, dynamics.
Yep.
I mean, you're not far off. I think you almost have to look at it through 2 lenses. Like, what is marriage in the Western world versus the rest of the world? Because I think in the Western world, I don't know that economics is the number 1 driver.
But why is that? All right. Why is it? Because someone wrote a love story once upon a time saying that, it should be all about love. And number 2 is children, right? You want to have children and start a family. So those are my 3 reasons, right? Economic, children, and love is like third in my view. So if where we're talking about, your friend that got married because of the kids, well, good on her.
Yeah.
Good on her. I was in a similar situation where I knew we would be better off together, especially in the early years of my son's life as young people. That way we could still achieve the things that we wanted to achieve. And my son's mother is a rock star, absolute rock star, works in banking and insurance. And she's amazing. She's an amazing woman. But I wanted to ensure that everything that she wanted to go after and achieve, she still could. So it made sense. And me understanding and what marriage means, that it's an economic thing, that I think I made the right decision. I'd do it 10 times out of 10.
I definitely see, where you're coming from the economic angle.
So it was love for you. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, I think so. I've joked with Katie that we should get married by the end of the year, at least in a courthouse, to get the tax benefits from it. At least just December 31st. Why not? Because if you get married December 31st, you get the tax incentives for next year. So, but yeah, I think for me it was love. It definitely, I guess the whole process took longer than I thought it would. Because we've been together for 5+ years. Mm-hmm. I thought I was ready in 2015.
Yeah.
She was like, whoa, back. Nope.
I like Katie more and more.
Katie is like way better than me. I've said this before. She's way smarter than me. Yeah.
That also brings up a really good point, Austin. And kudos to you for long-term relationships, 5+ years or so. I probably 2 years steady in a relationship and maybe an additional year on and off. So not greatly successful in relationships. So that's why I really want us to have a conversation about it, because I want to know what your secrets are. You've obviously got what it takes to make it long term.
I think there's a little bit of luck involved.
Okay, I like this. I like it.
I don't know. It's just weird when you think about how everything happens, right? There's like 7 billion people, 7.6 billion people on this planet. And you know, how do you go about meeting people? You know, marriage back in the day was based on who your family knew. You know, what your economic status was, because you couldn't marry anyone above or below your economic status. I mean, definitely not below.
What if you're a woman though? Don't women mostly marry up?
You could marry up. That's when, you know, the dowries had to be increased a little bit more. But primarily you didn't marry, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a different dynamic now, but I guess I'm still dumbfounded and like, she actually say yes. But we live together now, so
she can't go anywhere. I mean, she could.
Well, it was funny. So when we got engaged, like all of her family was there. My family was there, and her dad like made a beeline to come give me a hug, and he made a comment. He's like, you know, like, welcome to the family, no takebacks, no returns. And I was like, tell her that. I was like, I'm good. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't answer your question.
No, it's all good. Just you were mentioning that, you know, she's smarter than you.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about, you know, the things that I look for in a partner. And just as a disclaimer, you know, I'm not going to speak about any relationship, you know, within the last 2 years. So it'll be all like old dirt, long gone.
It's smart.
Yes.
It's very smart.
Yes. Yes. But you mentioned she's smarter than you. And I'd love a woman to be smarter than me, more cultured, more well-traveled, there's more refined, you know, because I'm definitely rough around the edges. And, you know, if I don't have someone that's going to ask me some hard questions and challenge me, I will make that beeline. I'm a runaway train.
It's interesting you talk about like being cultured. I mean, so a big part for me is travel. You know, that's something that I'm very passionate about, you know, being able to go explore, see the world, have conversations with people, and just learn more about what makes the world tick. And she's completely like that. So her and her family, you know, frequent flyers. Unfortunately, they're American Airlines family and not United, but that's neither here nor there. She has been known to take weekend trips to China. You know,
that's right up your alley.
Yeah, she's a consultant, and so I think there's like a rule in consulting that if you're off-site somewhere, you know, as long as your flight price is the same, they don't care where you fly to for that weekend. Mm-hmm. And so there have been, you know, amazing deals to Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong, and her dad and her brother will get on a flight Thursday afternoon, fly to China.
Yeah.
Spend 36 hours, 24 hours there, fly back. And that's incredible. I mean, being able to speed through a city, see all the highlights, sleep on the plane. I don't know. I like that sense of adventure.
Yeah, I mean, winner, chicken dinner. So when you were growing up, your mother and father. So for me, I didn't see that in my household. I didn't see, my mother and father didn't remain married. They divorced when I was very, very young, before I have any memories of it. And then I didn't have a mother in my house. It was my father that raised me and my brother. And he didn't get remarried until I was already, a freshman or sophomore in college. So as far as like relationship advice goes, I don't take relationship advice from anyone who hasn't been married at least 10 years.
Why?
Well, they don't know. If you've been in it short term.
But to someone that's been in it a long time, do they really know?
I mean, that's a good question. That was just kind of a rule of thumb for me. If you don't know, if you haven't been through like the bloodbath of what marriage can be and made it out on the other side, what can you really tell me about a relationship?
I get that, but I mean, you were kind of positioning it to me that like, all right, look, I've had a long-term relationship, so I'm a subject matter expert in this, but I am anything but a subject matter expert in this.
I think in 5 more years you will be.
I don't think so. I mean, I think if you think that's when you're set up to fail. I mean, you've just got to, I don't know. I mean, each day is different, right? I mean, if you think it's probably stale, right?
But is that something that you saw growing up, that kind of, made an impression on you to want to get married?
No, I mean, I think when I was younger, like a kid, I never thought about it. I always thought about just me.
So at no point in time you aspired to get married? You just, met Katie, she swept you off your feet?
I don't know that I aspired. I don't even think I thought about getting married until maybe end of high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was never really anything that crossed my mind. It's not like I, had a bunch of magazines when I was a little kid fantasizing about my wedding day, that kind of thing. I don't know. It wasn't really something that I thought of.
I can see that. But your mother and father.
Yeah.
Were they married? Is that what you saw? You saw.
Yeah, they were married. My dad came from parents that were divorced. He moved to Texas from California when he was, middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Dynamics were probably a little more challenging for him growing up.
Yeah.
My mom, her parents were married. They got married early 1960s, like during high school. And that situation was, because of a kid.
Yeah.
And, back in the late 1950s,
that's like what
early
you did
1960s,
back then, right?
that's what you did.
Yeah.
So, that's where their, marriage, kind of originated from. And, they stayed together until my grandfather passed away 3 years ago. I don't know. I guess if they taught me anything, it's that it's a team effort.
Absolutely. I believe it wholeheartedly. And even though I didn't see marriage, growing up in my household, I remember I dated a woman in high school. I should say a girl. She wasn't a grown woman. She was a high schooler.
It's like DeRae.
We were in the same grade.
Breaking some laws here.
We were in the same grade, and I just really adored her family.
Yeah.
I used to just go over to her house and hang out with her because her mother and father had such an awesome relationship. And it was not anything that I had ever seen before. And, she was, definitely higher up on the socioeconomic ladder. Her parents being both highly educated and professional folks living in a really good part of town in a really nice house. And I just adored her parents. Like, part of the reason I adored her was because of her parents.
You're not just marrying the person, right?
Yeah.
Or you're not just dating the person. Mm-hmm. You're dating their family.
Absolutely.
Friends. You're marrying their family, their friends. So you've got to have, mutual respect, love, whatever you want to call it, for them as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely marrying into the family. And that's one of the things that I look for, not only for someone to be, more cultured, well-traveled, smarter than me. Like, please be all those things. But, I come from a big family, too. That's awesome, right? Because I never got to see that. My family is actually quite dysfunctional. But what you learn is there's some sort of trade-off, because I've had conversations with the folks that do marry into those families, and I'm like, oh boy, that is a headache and a half. Because you're marrying everybody, la-di-da-di everybody. Welcome to the family. No returns.
Yeah, that's a line from Skip. You should probably put that on a T-shirt. So Skip, we'll talk about that if you want to put something up on the cautiouscoffee.com merch store. We will definitely do that. We'll do a marriage collection. How about that? Getting engaged. Here's some words of wisdom from Skip. I think that would be a great idea. But I think that's part of the challenge that maybe some people don't understand, because I think, I have friends that don't have relationships at all with their parents. And what I mean by that is haven't talked to either parent for a decade.
Either parent?
Either parent.
Ooh.
Yeah, I have a friend from college. I don't know all of the dynamics, but, she had basically... her and her family cut each other off end of college, and last I had heard there's been no communication. Yeah. And I think that's got to be challenging, right? Like if you're trying to date someone in a similar type position where their family's there, but there's no relationship, there's no connection. How do you make that work?
I have a bit of an estranged relationship with my mother. And maybe I've seen her 5 times in my life. Yeah. I've spoken with her on the phone, so but that's an entirely different conversation when you're talking about super conservative, versus someone maybe a bit more moderate.
Yeah.
Either way, very interesting dynamics. But really, in previous episodes we've talked about asking yourself what you desire most. Right. And that's really what it's going to come down to. It's not necessarily what your parents want or your family wants.
It's what you want.
It's what you want.
Because you have to be happy at the end of the day.
It's what you can live with, what you're willing to trade off, because relationships are give and take, right?
Yeah. And I think that sometimes, just in general, not necessarily in relationships, but I feel like individuals can try to live a certain lifestyle or project a certain image because they want to make other family members proud of them, when in actuality, they're not proud of themselves. You know, that they could be suffering through mental health issues, unhappiness, just because they're trying to please other people. But I think, you know, when it comes to relationships, friendships, marriage, you've got to make sure that you're happy, right? I think you have to be selfish, make sure you're both happy, you know, in order for it to work. I mean, don't do it just because someone tells you to.
I think it's good to have those candid conversations about, you know, early on where that relationship is going, what your intentions are. I try to be as intentional as possible. So, you know, I know we're similar ages, and we came out of, you know, our 20s and maybe early 20s. Maybe we weren't dating with purpose.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. And I think that's okay. You have to, you know, get the reps and kind of figure out what you like and don't like, and what you're interested in. But then as you mature, you start becoming a bit more intentional about everything in your life, not just relationships.
Well, you mentioned this, I think on episode 3 or episode 4 of the podcast. You evolve as you get older, as you have more experience in the world. Because when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And as you start living life out in the real world, and I want to say like post-college, like when you get out on your own, I mean, the world changes completely, right? I mean, you don't have a formal support structure in place, whether that's parents, whether that's, you know, a college or university or an athletic team keeping you in check. You don't have that support system. You can do whatever you want, right? The choices that you make dictate where your life goes, you know, whereas in high school or college, if you make a decision, you know, there could be consequences like, you know, suspension, your parents could ground you, that kind of thing. In real life, that's not the case. So you really dictate where your life goes. And I would venture to say 30-year-old DeRae was a lot more wise than 20-year-old DeRae. And I'm going to say that 30-year-old Austin was a lot more wise than 20-year-old Austin. And maybe things that we wanted in life at the age of 20, maybe we still want them when we're, you know, at our current age, but maybe they've evolved. Maybe our plans have gotten a little bit wider. I mean, I think back to when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, I had only really traveled to a handful of countries, to Germany. I never thought that I would be obsessed with trying to go to all 7 continents and trying to go to as many countries as I want. That's 10 years ago. I mean, that's the crazy part. Like, who are we going to become when we're 50, when we're 60? And then the relationships that we're in when we're 50, 60, you know, the marriages, how are those going to evolve over time?
You know, is that a conversation you've had? You know, understanding that you're going to be different.
Yep, you have to be able to grow together, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the challenges that I see a lot. So I went to Baylor University, and there was a huge joke about a ring by spring, right? I mean, so many people getting engaged spring of their junior year, spring of their senior years. And so many people that got married or engaged during college are now divorced now. I would say the divorce rate, if I'm just ballparking based on my friend group, of people that got married at that age, north of 75%.
You think they went looking for love or what?
No, I mean, because I feel like there's a lot of pressures, especially at a conservative Baptist university.
Oh, that's fair.
You know, that you have to get married, that you have to find your spouse at Baylor University. And basically everyone tells you that you should be married by 24, you should have kids by 30.
Wow.
Because that's what your parents did. And here I am, you know, 30 years old, engaged, not married, kids, no.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, each person's different. You gotta, you know, make sure that you're happy, that your spouse is happy. And
I think that those young folks didn't understand themselves well enough to be successful in those relationships and having those candid conversations. So, you know, I asked you, have you had that conversation saying, you know, hey, you know, we're engaged now, we're going to be married. You know, you're going to be different 10 years from now. I'm going to be different 10 years from now. And understanding that, right? Going into it, knowing that we're going to be two totally different people. And it is important to find someone that you're aligned with. You know, I need to find someone who's aligned with understanding what I believe marriage is, right? Economic, children, and then love is like tertiary. Simply because, I understand that, that love wanes, right? It's going to be hotter sometimes. It's going to be cooler sometimes. You're not going to be able to stand that person sometimes. Like, why are you breathing? Why are you breathing? Why do relationships fail? And why do people have such a hard time, like, owning the role they played in the failure of relationships? And then they move on to the next relationship, and that person that they dated before was totally a bad person. But yet they were there too. Like, it took both of you all, to make that relationship a thing.
Yeah, because I think sometimes you can find positive element, positive qualities in so many different people, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you might look back and say, oh my gosh, we were not compatible at all. What was I thinking? But there was something that drew you to that person, whether it's attraction, whether it's intelligence, whether it's conversation, banter, shared hobbies, shared interest. I think sometimes convenience, that could be a factor that weighs into it. But yeah, I think that's part of the evolution process, right? Because the person you might date when you're 19, 20 years old is not the person that you end up marrying.
Right. And I think hopefully, if you dated someone way back then, and then, you're 30 now, you're still not speaking negatively about that person.
No, I mean, don't let people in your past dictate your future.
Well, I think some people
should
just
learn from them
naturally. Everyone they dated before you was a bad person, right? And we're all bad in someone's story, I suppose. But
no, never. 5-star reviews for all of us.
But just really, I think that's, if you're starting out in a new relationship and you're having a conversation, and, those conversations come up about past relationships. And I think it's a red flag. It's a red flag for me if someone just speaks negatively about everyone they dated previously and doesn't take any ownership of the role they played in the failure of that relationship.
Yeah, it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
Definitely takes two to tango.
Yeah. So if that person can't say, this is where I fell short, then I know that it's unlikely that we're going to be compatible.
So we are done with our cups of coffee, so we should probably start wrapping up the show. But DeRae, what's your one takeaway when it comes to marriage, relationships, whether it's advice for listeners?
You're sure? Are you sure you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want the real, the unfiltered, the authentic DeRae Crane.
Understand the history of marriage, before you go and get married. It's not a fairy tale. That narrative, we love narrative. We love stories. We love stories. Like, that's not a thing. I mean, it is a thing sometimes. I know, it's cool to have those moments, but this is your partner. It's a merger. It's almost like a business merger, right? You both have assets. You both have experiences that can be valued by one another. Have those candid conversations early. Figure out what you're into, what you're not into, and if something's bothering you, don't just let it fester. Sit down at a table like this.
Make sure it's a solid green wood table.
Yes, and you can be respectful and still be candid. But those are the types of relationships that last, and it could be romantic. It could be a friendship. Don't let stuff fester, because it's not just going to go away.
If you keep things inside and you just let them build up, it's just going to tear at you, and one day you're just going to explode, yell, say something, do something you regret.
You will fail. Yeah, that relationship will fail.
Yeah, I guess my takeaways is just do what makes you happy. If that's marriage, great. If that's long-term relationship, great. If it's domestic partnership, whatever, great. If it's co-parenting, great. Do what makes you and your partner happy. I think that's the most important thing. And then don't let society dictate, what the future should look like,
or what should make you happy. What's supposed to make you happy?
Yeah, exactly. So that's my takeaway for it. Good conversation.
Yeah,
relationship.
Yeah, we kept it
marriage.
We kept it light for the most part.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a bonus episode, the in-depth analysis. I don't know. We'll see.
I am thinking about that.
We should.
Yeah.
We should. But DeRae, it's been great. Episode 5, Cautious Coffee. Of course, if you want to follow our work, cautiouscoffee.com. All of the social media links are there. You can pick up some merch. You can listen on iTunes, Spotify, join our Patreon page.
Give us feedback.
Well, I think early on we've got like probably around 20 iTunes reviews and comments. And we've been posting like feedback graphics on social media, which has been a lot of fun. So if you want to appear on a graphic, and if you like what we're doing, or if you don't like what we're doing,
if you disagree with anything that I had to say,
or I had to say,
yes,
I mean, we're both likable people, so we hope there's not a lot of disagreement. But yet, no, we do want disagreement. We want people to disagree with us. We want people to disagree, then tell us why.
Yeah, you got to give me a why though.
Yeah, don't just say, "Oh, I didn't like what you said."
Yeah,
tell us why. And we are going to share positive feedback, negative feedback, neutral feedback. I mean, that's what we're going to do. So again, we want this to be not the Austin and DeRae show. This is the Cautious Coffee community. How does that? Does that work for a close?
I guess.
All right. So on behalf of DeRae Crane, my name's Austin Staton. We'll see you next week.